12 most shocking Old Testament stories that few Christians know. What if I told you the Bible contains stories so shocking they sound like something out of a horror movie? Tales of the earth swallowing people alive, bears mauling children, and a woman turning into salt, all in the name of divine judgment. Why did these things happen, and what were they meant to teach us? Buckle up, because today we're diving into the most unsettling stories of the Old Testament, and trust me, you won't see some of these coming. Stay to the end. The last story is not only shocking, but also shameful. 1. The earth swallows Korah and his followers, number 16. Imagine challenging the wrong person and suddenly, the ground splits open beneath you. That's exactly what happened to Korah and his rebellious followers. They questioned Moses' leadership, accusing him of hogging power. But God wasn't having it. In an instant, the earth cracked open, swallowing them alive, tents, families, and all. Then, fire rained down, burning 250 men who dared to defy God's chosen leaders. This wasn't just about punishment. It was a brutal reminder of divine authority. Moses didn't appoint himself. God did. And crossing that line had deadly consequences. Some say this was about justice, others call it overkill. But one thing's clear. In the Old Testament, rebellion against God's order was no joke. Why would a loving God do something so extreme? Maybe it was about setting a precedent, a warning to future generations. Or maybe it's a reminder that some lines just shouldn't be crossed. Either way, this story leaves us with more questions than answers. 2. Elisha and the cursed youths, 2 Kings 2:23-24. Picture this, a prophet minding his own business when a gang of kids starts mocking his bald head. Sounds harmless, right? Wrong. Elisha wasn't just any man. He was a prophet of God. And when he cursed those boys in God's name, 2 bears came out of nowhere and mauled 42 of them. At first glance, it seems insanely harsh. Were they just kids being kids? Or was this about something deeper, disrespecting God's authority? In biblical times, prophets weren't just preachers. They were God's mouthpieces. Mocking Elisha wasn't just rude, it was defiance against God himself. Still, it's hard not to wince at this story. Couldn't there have been a lesser punishment? Maybe. But in a world where divine respect meant survival, this was a brutal lesson. Don't mess with God's messengers. 3. The sacrifice of Jephthah's daughter, Judges 11:30-39. This one's a gut punch. Jephthah, a warrior, made a reckless vow. If God gave him victory, he'd sacrifice the first thing that came out of his house. He probably expected a goat or a servant, but no, it was his own daughter, his only child, dancing in celebration. And because of his oath, he went through with it. This story chills us to the bone. Why would God allow such a thing? Some argue Jephthah misunderstood God's laws. Human sacrifice was forbidden. Others say it's a lesson about thoughtless vows. Either way, it's heartbreaking. What makes it worse? His daughter accepted her fate, asking only to mourn her youth first. This isn't just a story about divine justice. It's about the tragic cost of human pride and rash decisions. If these stories shocked you, smash that like button and subscribe. We're on a mission to reach 100,000 subscribers this year, and your support means everything. Stay tuned because we've got even more mind-blowing stories coming up. 4. The Levite's concubine and the horror at Gibeah, Judges 19. This might be the darkest story in the Bible. A Levite and his concubine seek shelter, only for the men of Gibeah to demand to assault him. Instead, the host offers his own daughter and the concubine. The concubine is abused all night and dies on the doorstep. Then, the Levite cuts her body into 12 pieces and sends them across Israel. What just happened? This wasn't divine punishment. It was human depravity at its worst. The story mirrors Sodom's sin, but with an even grislier ending. It's a wake-up call about how far society can fall without moral boundaries. Why is this in the Bible? Maybe to show the chaos before Israel had a king, or maybe to remind us that evil, left unchecked, leads to unspeakable horror. Either way, it's a story that haunts you long after you read it. 5. Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt. Genesis 19:26. Sodom and Gomorrah are burning, and Lot's family is told, "Run, don't look back." But Lot's wife does, and instantly turns into a pillar of salt. Why such a harsh punishment for a glance? Some say it was about disobedience. Others think it was longing for her old, sinful life. Either way, it's a warning. Some doors, once left behind, should never be reopened. Think that's wild? Just wait. We've got talking donkeys, mass angelic executions, and a queen eaten by dogs. Stick around, because the next few stories are even crazier. 6. God sends a plague of serpents. Numbers 21:4-9. The Israelites were done with wandering in the desert. They complained, moaned, and even insulted God and Moses. So, what did God do? He sent venomous snakes to bite them, and people started dropping dead. Panic set in fast. But here's the twist. God didn't just leave them to suffer. He told Moses to make a bronze snake and put it on a pole. Anyone who looked at it would live. Strange, right? Why a snake? The snake symbolized Jesus that would become sin on the cross to redeem the earth from Satan. This story is a roller coaster. 1 minute, it's divine wrath. The next, it's mercy. It's a reminder that rebellion has consequences, but God always leaves a way out, if we're willing to take it. 7. The prophet killed by a lion. 1 Kings 13:11-32. A prophet gets a direct order from God. Go to Bethel, deliver my message, and don't eat or drink there. Simple, right? But then an old prophet lies to him, saying, God told me to invite you for dinner. The man believes him, eats, and on his way home, a lion kills him. Here's the creepy part. The lion doesn't eat him. It just stands there, next to his body and his unharmed donkey. This wasn't a random animal attack. It was divine judgment for disobedience. Moral of the story? When God gives you clear instructions, stick to them. Don't let anyone, even a holy person, talk you out of it, because in the end, you're the one who pays the price. 8. The angel of death slays 185,000 soldiers. 2 Kings 19:35. The Assyrian army had Jerusalem surrounded. They were ruthless, undefeated, unstoppable. King Hezekiah prayed desperately for help. And that night, the angel of the Lord went through the enemy camp. By morning, 185,000 soldiers were dead. No battle, no swords clashing, just one angel, one night, and an entire army wiped out. This wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. God didn't need armies to protect his people. Some call it a miracle, others a terrifying display of power. Either way, it's proof that when God steps in, no enemy stands a chance. 9. The graphic fate of Jezebel, 2 Kings 9:30-37. Jezebel was the ultimate villainess, wicked, manipulative, and proud, but her end, brutal. After years of evil, she was thrown from a window, trampled by horses and eaten by dogs. Even her skull, hands, and feet were all that remained. This wasn't just random violence. It was the exact fulfillment of Elijah's prophecy years earlier. No royal burial, no dignity. Just a gruesome end for a woman who defied God to the very last. It's a stark reminder. Pride always has a downfall. And when God says judgment is coming, it's coming. 10. Balaam's talking donkey. Numbers 22:21-30. Balaam was a prophet for hire on his way to curse Israel for money. But his donkey suddenly stopped and spoke to him. Yes, a talking donkey. It even argued with him. Turns out the donkey saw an angel with a drawn sword, something Balaam, the prophet, missed. The message? God's will won't be stopped. Not by greed, not by stubbornness, not even by a man who won't listen until his donkey schools him. Funny? Sure, but also a powerful lesson. Sometimes God uses the most unexpected ways to get our attention. 11. Uzzah struck dead for touching the ark, 2 Samuel 6, 7. The Ark of the Covenant was sacred, untouchable, but when the oxen stumbled, Uzzah reached out to steady it. Zap, dead on the spot. Seems harsh, right? But this wasn't about good intentions. It was about holiness. The ark wasn't just a box, it was God's presence. And some boundaries cannot be crossed, no matter how noble the reason. A hard lesson? Absolutely. But it reminds us, God isn't to be treated casually. Respect matters. 12. Reuben's disgrace. Genesis 35, 22, 49, 3, 4. Reuben's actions in Genesis 35, 22 are some of the most shocking in the Bible. While Jacob and his family were dwelling in a place called Bethlehem, Reuben, the eldest son, committed a disgraceful act by sleeping with Bilhah, his father's concubine. Bilhah was one of Jacob's wives, and this act of betrayal not only disrespected his father, but also threatened the stability of his family's authority. Reuben's actions were an affront to his father's leadership and to the sacredness of the family structure. Despite this, Jacob did not immediately react, allowing the event to unfold quietly at the time. However, the consequences of Reuben's sin were far from over. As Jacob lay on his deathbed, he delivered blessings and warnings to each of his sons, and when it was Reuben's turn, he cursed him. In Genesis 49, 3, 4, Jacob declared that Reuben's actions had cost him his birthright and that he would never excel because of his moral failure. This curse would affect Reuben's descendants, with his tribe losing its place of prominence in Israel. Reuben's story is a sobering reminder of the destructive power of betrayal and the lasting consequences of dishonoring family and God's order. Which of these stories left you speechless? Let us know in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button. We're counting on you to help us reach 100,000 subscribers this year. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.